in heaven above. What is this thing called love?
Doc, I thought maybe we discuss this point about your records. Now, there are all these wonderful records here. It's a Good Life, which is with the Working Band, which is also on Parkwood. Then there's the album you did originally for French Black and Blue, which came out here on Classic Jazz, Good for What Ails You. Then there's Too Marvelous for Words and I've Got a Crush on You, which is on New York Jazz Records. And some of the records we've already been playing, the Swedish Kennet label with a tribute to Billie Holiday, the Parkwood album we were just playing, the fabulous Doc Cheatham, and, of course, the Jezebel Box. I'm speaking basically of your studio recordings, and I left out the one I did with you, too, for Jazz Session, where you sort of have not been satisfied, at least at the time of release, with any of them, except for the Swedish one, tribute to Billie Holiday. Let's start with the positive one. Why this time did you rave?
I don't know, Phil. I think every time I make a recording, seems like there's something that I'm missing, something I can't seem to explain with my horn, and maybe it's just my imagination, but it comes out that way. I never feel real happy about any of those. I don't understand why. I have no idea why. It seems like a lot of the things that I would like to do, I don't seem to do them on albums, where I feel freer playing live at the club, because the least mistake you make, you have to go over it again, over it again, over it again. I think it has a lot to do with
so
recording.
Why hasn't an album been done live then, if you think that would perhaps...
Well, no one has ever approached me to do an album.
Don't you think that the activity at the Sweet Basil should be taken down for...
I absolutely do. I think so.
Well, maybe Parkwood will do that. Let's knock wood.
Well, I'm hoping so.
Or some label, or I don't know, we have a lot of different listeners. There may be some record people out there. There's an album, Doc Cheatham, live at Sweet Basil. I guarantee you I'm going to play it on the radio. I think my colleagues will too. I'll buy some. Others will buy it. Make a record, Doc Cheatham.
I'm certainly sure that someone will come along one of these days.
Well, maybe they're waiting for you to be the UB Blake of jazz.
That's right. That's exactly what they're trying to do.
We're talking with Doc Cheatham. This is a live interview. It's going on in a home away from home for Doc Cheatham on his birthday. He has visited us here a number of times in the last 2 decades, and it's a pleasure to have him here on this 13th of June, Friday the 13th. Come on a Monday here in 1988 in June. And it's Doc Cheatham's 83rd birthday. We're celebrating it with the man himself, Doc Cheatham, here at WKCR, and I'm pleased. I'm very, very happy to see you and see you looking so fine. So the albums now, it's this. I take it that the answer is the same. The album you like on Kennet, the one you wrote, I like this one, which is a rave from you, and the albums that you've sort of not liked as much, but it's the same reason. It's a feeling you can't explain why you like that one and why you didn't like the others.
That's true, yes. That's true.
Now, one thing I note on the fabulous Doc Cheatham, at the time, you said, I ain't crazy about this album, but you dug The Man I Love in St. James Infirmary. Now you say the record's okay, it's grown on you.
Yes.
But these are still your favorite cuts from the album.
I think so. I think they are.
What did they do that's different? Maybe we'll play them for the people out there.
I don't know.
It's still...
Sometimes with some of the things that I would like to record, the producer of the guy he says, no, we don't want to do that. How about something playing so-and-so? And then I have to change everything and play what he wants, record what he wants me to do. And that sometimes it bothers me a little bit, because I feel I can do better on some things than, some others at the time, because that's the way you feel when you're recording. You feel like doing something that you want to do, and then the guy says, no, I don't want to do that, do so-and-so. And that kind of, upsets your mind a little bit. At least it upset by it a little bit. But I try to do whatever they want me to do, because I have no power to do anything otherwise.
Well, certainly the records have been well received. I think It's a Good Life got a great deal of airplay here in Big Apple in the early 80s and mid-80s. And all of the records have been featured. A couple of them have sold better than others, but we love them all. And we're looking for the day when you write on one of them, I love this. Well, this is it.
Yes, yes. I'm waiting for that day also.
Well, today is a day that you've had a long wait for. 83 years ago you were born, June 13th, 1905. Any reflections on being 83 as opposed to being 66 or 50 or 40 or 78 or 80 or hike? What's your words of wisdom for us today, us youngsters?
I tell you, Bill, it's one of those things. I just go along and I do not get upset over things like I used to when I was much younger. I used to easily get upset over things when they didn't satisfy me, but I've changed. The last few years, I've just changed that attitude altogether. And I'm just taking it easy, keeping calm. I think that's great. It's a great feeling. Physically, you feel better anyway when you calm yourself down.
Well, we're going to calm down and relax with the two tracks from the album The Fabulous Doc Cheatham on Parkwood Records. 104 is the catalog number in this instance, and this is November 1983 recordings, again with the quartet of the late Dick Wellsted, I'm afraid the late Bill Pemberton, and fabulous Jackie Williams with the fabulous Doc Cheatham. We're going to play the two cuts that when the album came out in 84, you cited as your favorites and remain your favorites, although your whole attitude about the album as a whole has changed favorably in the 4 years since its release. So we'll go to the St. James Infirmary and The Man I Love, then we'll come back to The Man I Love, Doc Cheatham, here on his 83rd birthday.
Went down to St. James Infirmary. Saw my baby there. She stretched out a long white table. Yes, she was so sweet, so cold, so bad. Well, let her go, let her go. God bless her. Wherever she may be, she can look this whole wide world over, and she'll never find another sweet man like me.
Well, there were your favorites, Doc, from the album. How did they stand up, and what would you like to point out about them?
Well, that's one of the tunes that he didn't want me to record.
The Man I Love.
He was there, and I just started playing it, and it just so happened that the thing was turned on, and so he just waved at me to continue. But I was going to play it anyway, whether he recorded it or not, just to feel, to satisfy myself at the studio. If he recorded, okay. If he didn't, I felt like playing that tune. That has a lot to do with it when you feel like doing something.
The other selection was an interesting use of the Flee as a Bird hymn that is often used as a start of New Orleans funerals before you went into the St. James Infirmary. That's been done, but whose idea was it on this occasion?
Mine.
Is that the way you do St. James Infirmary these days? Yeah.
I also do that on the Saints too. I don't know why. I feel that Flee as a Bird is associated with St. James and the Saints somehow.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I feel about it. I could be wrong, but I feel that way.
Well, one of the people you knew in the 20s and even recorded with, although it's as an obscure and perhaps even lost side, it was Jelly Roll Morton, and he, of course, would illustrate the New Orleans funeral with Flee as a Bird, and then the coming back from the funeral tune, Didn't He Ramble?
Yes.
Maybe we ought to talk about some of the giants of jazz that Doc Cheatham has known over the years. This is Doc Cheatham's 83rd birthday. He's here in the studio with us. This is a live radio interview with a living legend, and as Ram Ramirez phoned in and said, it's better to be a living legend, Doc. Happy birthday. Doc Cheatham is 83 years young today, and he's still going strong. This program is Out to Lunch. It's theme today, the Doc Cheatham 83rd birthday broadcast. I'm the host. My name is Phil Schaap, and with me again, Doc Cheatham. We just heard Doc's favorite cuts from the album The Fabulous Doc Cheatham, with the rhythm of Dick Wellsted, Bill Pemberton, and Jackie Williams backing Doc's trumpet, as we heard, and vocal, as we heard Flee as a Bird, St. James Infirmary as a coupling, or it's not really a medley, it is a unit, even though it's two melody lines. And then The Man I Love, which also is coupling. The double tempo bit has long been a way of doing the Gershwin classic, and Doc, of course, employs that. In fact, he kicked it in an upbeat tempo on this particular occasion in November of '83. We have Doc Cheatham here with us. I must mention that, and I said this at the top of the program, Doc, I don't know whether you were listening on your way here, but I told the people of New York City and the greater tri-state area who can pick up this broadcast that if they are jazz people and they don't go to Sweet Basil on Sunday afternoon from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. 3 or 4 times a year, call it 4. They're wrong. You're wrong out there. You said, hey, check in with Doc a few times each year.
Right.
That's and Doc Cheatham, although he does a great deal of work, and his activity, I'm sure, would stagger, or if not fell, a fella who would be a whole lot younger than you. He does double and triple gigging at times. I don't know where he gets the stamina to do it, but his mainstay gig is Sundays from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Sweet Basil at 88 7th Avenue South. That's every Sunday. You'll be missing a couple of Sundays, if I'm not mistaken. The 3rd of July, you'll probably be on your way to the festival.
Yes.
But most of the time, Doc Cheatham is there, say 45 weeks out of 52 Sundays each year. It's been going on all decade. In other words, they found you as a young man of 75. They had that. That's when they really should have done the live at Sweet Basil, the week of your 80th birthday, when all those people were playing you. And, of course, some of them you can no longer play with you. But maybe they should do it now.
They certainly should.
And young and old in all sorts of styles. And that's something maybe that'll introduce Doc Cheatham talking about jazz superstars, that you are not just, known for having recorded with these legends, Jelly Roll Morton and Ma Rainey, which is over 60 years ago. I noticed during our Cannonball Adderley Festival that you had worked on a rather legendary LP with Machito for Roulette many, many moons ago, in which two of my favorite unsung trumpet men, Frank Williams and Doc Cheatham, are there at the same time playing with Cannonball Adderley. What do you remember about that record, and what can you tell us about either Machito or Cannonball Adderley?
Well, I've known Cannonball for a long time, but that was the first time I ever had an opportunity to play with him. I didn't know he was on the session. I didn't know Frank, I didn't know who was on the session when we went down there. And I think Fuller, what's his name, Walter Fuller, who did the scores on those.
Yeah, Walter Gill Fuller, right. Very, very good.
And
You're amazing, Doc.
I didn't know who was on there. I think there was 5 or 6 trumpet players there. And I was surprised. I didn't know whether we were going to play anything. It was just a big surprise to me. And I thought it was a wonderful thing. I enjoyed it very much. I think that's one of the best things Machito, I feel that way, that he ever did.
It's an excellent album, and it bears reissue. So let's examine these components a little bit more in detail. You say although this was the first time you played with Cannonball Adderley, and you were surprised to find him at the studio, you were just hired and showed up, and you found out at the time what was going to be done, but you knew him already and had known him for a while.
Oh, yes.
Did you know him in his Florida days, or?
No, I met him here. That's where I first met Cannonball. And his brother.
And his brother.
I never came in contact with his brother too often. So I don't think I would know him if I'd see him, because I've never been around him enough to recognize him. But I have seen him quite a few times.
This indicates that you knew Cannonball in the period when they didn't have the brotherly band, that Nat was away with either Woody Herman or whoever he was playing with, and Cannonball was working either with Miles, or perhaps there was a short stint with Bill Evans, and he was freelancing out of New York. That's
true. That's absolutely true.
Anything else you could say about Cannonball Adderley? What the two of you would discuss?
No, he was very, 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 very nice to me somehow. I don't know why, but it seems as though we've known one another for a very long time. That's how warm he was. Very, very fine person. You know, he gives you so much confidence in being with him, playing with him. That's very important.
How would you describe his playing?
Well, you know, I've heard him several times. I've heard him play different styles. I don't know how to describe his playing. He's very modern, I know that.
He called himself a modern traditionalist.
Yes, that's true.
He also said that people blew it when they said he was Charlie Parker. He said he had a lot of influence from Benny Carter. You, of course, had worked with the Kings since 1931, if not before. Did you ever talk about Benny Carter with Cannonball Adderley?
Never did. No, I never did do that.
Well, that's a shame.
I'm very careful about, those things. I would like to have seen, been with him more, because, how we travel, we go in all different directions, and I never ran into him too much since then.
Did you know Cannonball or see the Cannonball Adderley, the Miles Davis Sextet when it was Cannonball and Coltrane and Miles?
No.
You never saw that band?
Never saw that.
And I gather then, just to sort of wrap this up, that, Cannonball, despite his being quite a blues-based musician, was involved when Miles and Bill Evans and that band sort of introduced this modal concept, which was a whole new style of soloing, so like took people away from the chords after they had learned how to run changes. They said you can't use them anymore.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have any insight into that whole change in jazz or Cannonball's participation in it.
Not at all. No.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all.
Well, let's move on to the leader that day, Machito. Tell us about Frank Grillo.
Frank was a very, very fine man, and he seemed to. Well, I don't know. He was. I don't know. Can't say too much other than that. He's a friend. He went along with everything, and I never saw him get excited about anything. And he knew what he wanted, and that's about all. He just directed the band, and he and Mario were together for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, Mario was the director of that band. He led that band, and Machito was just the man in front with the baton, you may say.
Did he use maracas or just baton?
Well, he used maracas. He played maracas a lot.
Uh-huh.
Most of the time he played maracas. So he didn't have too much to say. That is, I never heard him say anything at all, but just stand up there and direct the band with his maracas and sing. Because Mario did he was a big cheese of that band.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he was the power behind the throne, the real force?
Mario was the power behind the throne, yes. He was.
Mm-hmm. Did Mario play both trumpet and clarinet when you were there? Clarinet, saxophone?
He played trumpet when I first met, when I first joined the band.
We're speaking of Mario Bauza, by the way, B-A-U-Z-A, a legendary figure who even as early as 1929 was working on and even recording the blending of Latin sounds or Hispanic sounds with the jazz big band tradition. He had a great deal of influence on a young Dizzy Gillespie, and also played as a first-chair trumpeter with major big bands such as the Cab Calloway Band, which also was Doc's chair, and the long run he had with Chick Webb's orchestra. And I believe, although Sandy Williams and Russell Procope used to argue about this, that it is Mario Bowser who plays the little clarinet bit on the very first stomping at the Savoy, as well as playing first-chair trumpet in the band there. In any case, we're now talking about Mario Bowser and his relationship and importance as the power behind the throne of Machito's great orchestra, and Doc Cheatham is doing the talking. This is Doc's 83rd birthday. Back to you, Doc.
Wonderful. Yes, Mario is a great musician. There's no doubt about that, and I think that's why he was quite different from Machito. Machito had the personality, and that's what the band needed, and he had all the personality in the world. And Mario was, I think, well, what are you going to do? I don't know. He was the power behind the throne, and he knew what he wanted, and he got what he wanted, results, by being a great, thorough musician. That's the difference between the two of them. Machito, I don't think he had the training that Mario had, but he had the personality, and he knew how to bring the people to him. And I guess that's the difference between the two. While Mario was, he's like me. He'd sit back there in the background, and you wouldn't know that he was the cause of the band being as great as it was. Mario Bowser.
Doc Cheatham bringing forward an important aspect of Latin jazz history and the Machito Orchestra in general. Doc, you played with how many of the major Latin jazz orchestras? You had Perez Prado, you had Machito. Any others you'd like to call our attention to?
Well, I played with the last Latin band I played with was Ricardo Rey and Bobby Cruz. They had a great band. It was different from any other Latin bands that I've ever played with. They were young, and they had their own style and their own originality. And it took with the young, the Spanish people. They went for that band more so than they did for, I think, for Machito's band. So Machito's was the band that satisfied the people that like to dance with beautiful melodies, along with Graciela with a very beautiful voice. The people like that. And Bobby Cruz and Ricardo Rey's band was a jumping Latin band. It was a jumping band, and the people like to jump. That's where this whole thing started to change in the Latin field. Then the bands started. A lot of the bands started. Right now, I can hear Ricardo Rey's style among the Latin bands now that I'm listening to at different times. So he started something. And Machito remained the same all the time, and the people liked his. He brought in the Latin people loved to dance.
Right.
See, and Ricardo brought in I call Ricardo's band kind of a jitterbug type of thing that the kids was jumping all over the floor, which was altogether different style from Machito.
Doc Cheatham giving us some great insight and analysis of the Latin jazz and Latin band sound and its development. Maybe turning more to the jazz aspect of that, what jazz players, per se, great soloists of jazz, such as yourself and the others who were gathered around Machito for that Roulette album many years ago, which ones have really nailed it as far as playing jazz and the Latin style at the same time? Who's been successful in your opinion?
I think Dizzy has. Dizzy has been more successful than any of the American trumpet players. I mean, style than any of us. Even me, I don't think I wouldn't compare myself at all with Dizzy's talent. Because he I don't know, he just fell in there. Something just about that man. He just fell into that Latin scene, and I just don't understand it. But he did. It took me a long time. In fact, I was fired out of that band the first time I joined the band.
Which one?
Machito's band.
Ah.
I was there not too long, and I was fired because I couldn't seem to get to fall into the timing of the things that they were playing. I could read the things, but I didn't feel right, and they detected that right away. They didn't let me go right away. But I liked the music so much that I said, well, I'm going to stick with this Latin music till I learn what it's all about. And I played with a lot of small conjunto bands down on 110th Street and Park Avenue, on Fifth Avenue. A little band like Jose Boudet and a lot of them. We had a lot of them. I sat in there and played, learned, and just tried to learn all I could about playing Latin music. And I finally got to the place where I felt like I was halfway there. And so Machito hired me back again. Machito and Mary, they hired me back. They kept me for a long time. But still, I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel very comfortable because the whole thing, I seemed to change my life. You know what I mean? I'm used to one thing, and I go to something else. It just went against my grain. But I tried very hard. I was very happy when Ricardo Ray hired me, because I was with Benny Goodman at that time, and Benny's engagement ended, and Ricardo Ray was playing at the Audubon Ballroom, and a Latin trumpet player from Panama by the name of Victor Paz.
Oh, very famous.
So he asked me to go and play for him one night at the Audubon Ball with Ricardo Ray's band, and I was there. They had music to read and everything. And my solos, I felt so wonderful in that band, and they liked me so much that they kept me for a long time. I was with that band about almost 3 years.
Yeah.
They liked what I was playing. I was playing American jazz solos with the Latin beat that they had, the arrangement. And Machito's band, I felt like I was trying to play a Latin-style trumpet, and I couldn't. It just didn't work like I wanted it to. It's difficult. It's very difficult to change over like that. Dizzy fell in there just like he was born in that band.
Tell me, did you record with Ricardo Ray? I don't remember you making records with that band.
I made a lot of... Oh, God.
With solos?
Yes. The first recording I made was called Holla Holla with that band. I hadn't been in the band a week, so they recorded that. And that album went sky high, one of the biggest hits that he ever did.
Is your name on most of these albums?
My name is on all the albums.
Well, then,
all of his albums. I made many albums.
Well, we jazz people have got to go trace him down now.
Oh, I made a lot of albums. I made one about 3 years ago with him. He came to New York and recorded an album. But it's just difficult, you know. It's awful difficult.
Outside of Dizzy Gillespie, who you seem to be isolating the trumpeters, are there any other instrumentalists who you think have made the grade, like Dizzy in Latin jazz?
I really don't. I don't know. I don't. No, there are a lot. See, there are a lot of changes in the arrangements that are being written for Latin bands, like Stan Kenton style and a lot of other ones. As the years go along, the style of arranging has changed. So there are a lot of American trumpet players that are playing beautiful in Latin groups. But I don't know who they are.
Well, I'm still trying to get away from the trumpet. Like Machito was in this very room that you've been in twice, and on both occasions he mentioned Charlie Parker's guest soloing with his band. Of course, that was before you had joined. But do you think are you unaware of those recordings, or do you have a feeling about it that Dizzy and the others, Dizzy is head and shoulders above everyone in this particular aspect?
Yes, I think Dizzy was ahead of all. I was speaking mostly before about the trumpet players that played in the Latin groups, but I think saxophone players had better, quicker to grasp that type of music than our trumpet players. Other than Dizzy, I don't think anyone has ever come up to Dizzy.
So Dizzy is preeminent not just among the trumpeters, but all instrumentalists, alto like Charlie Parker, or Sweets on trumpet, or Buddy Rich on drums, or anybody who's ever attempted to blend with, say, Machito's orchestra and the other leading Latin jazz ensembles.
Yes.
Okay, we're talking with Doc Cheatham, and this is live. Doc is on his 83rd birthday, the first day of his 84th year. As you can tell, he's in fine form. This is going on here on WKCR-FM New York, 89.9 on the dial. The program Out to Lunch featuring the Doc Cheatham 83rd birthday broadcast. I'm Phil Schaap. And, well, you mentioned a name there, and he died on your birthday 2 years ago today. His name is Benny Goodman, and you knew him and worked with him. Could you talk about Benny Goodman?
Oh, I loved Benny Goodman, and I thought it was I knew he was a great player, and he was so great that, you know, he felt sometimes like everyone around him should be as great as he. I think he felt that way, because a lot of times he was dissatisfied with some of the musicians he had with him, and they were great players. I thought they were all great players, but something about him that he just wanted everything to be just so, and it didn't work that way all the time. But he was very good to me. I don't know why he put up with me, but he was very, very good. He fired everybody all around him but me. What he didn't fire. But I don't know. He's such a great player that I can understand it now that he had to be great to play with him. I don't know why he kept me there. I think he just liked me because I don't know. I let him have his way. You know, I didn't try to blow the roof off the place, which I couldn't do anyway, but I let him have his way, and I think that's why he liked me so much.
We're talking with Doc Cheatham. We're speaking to him of major figures in jazz history, and just to go on to yourself at this time. Now, that's right after that Benny Goodman period. This is my recollection. Remember, I wasn't me then. I didn't know as much as I know now, and of course I barely knew you, but that's when you decided you were going to change your whole trumpet style after the Goodman thing, when the Ricardo Ray thing was slowing down, and you sort of like, I remember you practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing, and you'd have me record your solos, and then you'd practice against your own solo tape and stuff like that.
It was hard, Phil. It was very hard, because I had nothing else to do. I mean, I wasn't given any work. It wasn't too much work out here for jazz at that time, and no one was calling me to do anything, and the Latin bands that came in very handy for me. It filled the gap, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
but let's talk more about not so much that you were able to work with the Latin jazz bands during periods of, let's say, few gigs jazz-wise. This whole attempt of yours to change your whole trumpet style that you started on roughly around the time you were 61 years of age, and worked on continuously for about 8 years, and still probably you'd say you're working on it. But I mean this intense period of revamping. What were you trying to do, and how did you do it?
Well, I began to think. I was thinking and thinking and thinking night and day. Why can't I do something else besides sitting in a band playing lead trumpet? Who knows that? What listener can tell you who's playing lead trumpet in this band or that band? Nobody. Only thing you do, the people just hear the band. They hear the band, and the style of the band is because of the style of the lead trumpet player, who's setting the style for all the bands back in those days, and now also.
They tuned up to the first chair in those, first chair trumpet player.
Yeah, who's out in the audience can say, oh, Doc Cheatham is playing, or so-and-so's playing lead trumpet player in that band? I thought about that, but here's a guy that's playing fourth trumpet, and walk out in front of the band and play a solo and tear up the house. Oh, that's so-and-so, that's Cootie, there's Lamar Wright, there's Irvin, there's so-and-so. I'm sitting up here and saying, listen, because I knew something about playing solos when I first started. In Chicago, I was the soloist. I wasn't a lead trumpet player. I was a soloist. And by coming out east, I was thrown into that position, because no one wanted to play lead parts. No one. Everybody wanted to play solos. So they had the second or third trumpet part. Now, everybody's playing lead, and solos and everything. So I said, look, let me try to better myself. What else could I do? I had no other talent. Nothing I could do but run an elevator or something like that. So I said, I decided one time to quit. I was in Puerto Rico when Ricardo Ray's band broke up. I decided to quit. I said, well, heck, what am I going to do? So I came back to New York, and I was invited to go to play with a band in the village, a fellow named Balaban.
Yeah, Red Balaban, and those were the
Yes.
Sunday jams at your father's mustache.
Yes. So he wanted someone to play Dixieland music. Well, I learned all of that stuff in Chicago. I was in Chicago long enough to learn everything the Dixieland bands played, and I never forgot it. And that started me again to play again, because I had given up. And I started, and I got myself together, and of course, it was a long trail, because even playing Dixieland music, you have to know what you're doing, you know. You have to know what you're doing, and I still study it. I'm practicing all the time to learn some. Then I want to get into a different style also, not just Dixieland, because I was labeled as a Dixieland trumpet player. Before that, I was labeled as a cha-cha trumpet player.
And before that, strictly first
A
chair.
great singer that you know labeled me as I know Doc Cheatham, he's a cha-cha trumpet player. Then I've been called a Dixieland trumpet player. I've been called everything but a lead trumpet player. And I decided just to study and listen to Roy, listen to Buck, listen to, I knew Louis, heard Louis, you have to listen to him. And all these great trumpets, Joe Wilder, Irvin Randolph, and all these, and Bob Schaffner, who I don't think anybody can remember, a great player, Bob Schaffner.
Well, you told me about him. I called him up in Chicago, but he
yeah.
wasn't really doing so well by then.
Well,
Yeah.
he had a rough time.
Yeah.
But all of these great trumpet players, Clark Terry, and Bobby Hackett, I had to face all of these guys when I started to playing, trying to play jazz. I had to face them.
One day you called me up and you borrowed all my Clifford Brown records. What'd you do then?
Man, I listened to Clifford Brown to the Red Reed Craze. I listened to Fats Navarro and those guys. I said, what is all this? What's happening? I missed all of these years. So I just listened and listened and listened and listened, and I've tried to get my mind back. A lot of things I didn't know. A lot of things I don't know now. But I'm feeling better now than I've ever felt playing solos. Because I'm taking a lot of chances, and that's what we all do when we go out to play solo. We take chances. Nothing is prearranged in our mind. We go out there, we just play. It just comes automatically from our mind.
Could you isolate anything that you got from any of those trumpet players that you listened to so heatedly and repeatedly in the late 60s and the first 3 years of the 1970s? You called their names, your Bobby Hackett's, your Roy Eldridge's, your Buck Clayton's, your Joe Wilder's, your Clifford Brown's, your Fats Navarro. Could you pick a trumpet player and say, I heard this in their style and I went with it in this way?
No, I can't. That's the thing that I can't do. I didn't even try, because I think it's wrong. But if sometimes I hear people that come, fans that come to the club, and I meet in Europe and different places where I go, they say, I hear a little Buck Clayton in your playing. Then some people, not here recently, a fella came in and said, gee, I hear a little Louis Armstrong.
Well, there's always been a lot of Louis Armstrong there.
Some say I hear a little Bobby Hackett.
But
This, that, another. I don't know.
We used to go hear Bobby extensively, you know, when he would do the things with Vic Dickinson at the Rainbow Room. And, of course, you would come as a customer when he played the Father's Mustache thing on Sunday, which I think he was spotted 3 times and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
What would you, I realize I'm not implying that you said, hey, he does this, I'll do that, because I know you couldn't. You've got to be intuitive. But let's say, what struck you about Bobby Hackett? What were you listening to?
Well, Bobby Hackett was very, very thorough. He knew everything. He didn't play anything unless it was absolutely correct. You know what I mean? And his solos, he knew that all the changes and everything, and which I've never been able to do that. I think he was more thorough than a lot of us. Of course, a lot of things he didn't do, but he stuck to that one style all the time. He knew the right chords, right changes, and he could change them around and do everything on a beautiful tone. And that was Bobby Hackett.
What was Clifford Brown?
Well, Clifford Brown was that guy came through with something of his own. He he was melodic, very, very melodic with everything he played. And I like that. Very melodic with all this. Well, he was very talented, beautifully talented man on his horn. And also in person, he was as nice as he was on his horn, because he was a very fine person to know.
You knew him?
Oh, yes. And he was always nice to me, very, warm, like I've been knowing him for years. And he played that way. I think that's what we all do.
So you were when by the time you got to me in the early 70s to borrow Clifford Brown records, it was because you didn't have the records, but you knew who Clifford Brown was already.
Oh, you bet I did. I want to hear all these great guys. Vance Waller, Howard McGee. When you hear so many of these great trumpet players, you almost go crazy. I said, gee, what is it? And I sound like the devil. I don't sound like I'm not playing. And every now and then something slips out, and I know it. The minute I play something that I didn't know I was going to play, it'll come out, and I said, gee, I heard that from Clifford Brown or Fats. So I'm playing. My mind is all just like a salad. What do you call it? A potpourri?
Potpourri, yeah.
That's the way my mind runs, and I don't know. I just play, and I find myself sometimes sounding like maybe 2 or 3 notes. It sound like somebody else, but that's the way it is. I don't have a style. I don't think.
Well, you may not think you have a style, but your solos are easy to pick out, even in a slew of selections by some of the very same trumpet players that you were just calling. You can pick out, in fact, I can pick you and Frank out from the Joe Newman entries on that Machito record. It's easy for me because you do have an identity, and that's why people identify with your playing. We love it.
Well, I hope so. I really hope so. But I can also pick out my solos when I hear it. I heard a solo I played with Lionel Hampton's band. I didn't know was being recorded in 1978 on a tour, on a jazz festival tour. I didn't know about this album being recorded. And I heard this album, and I said, that's my solo. We had 5 trumpet players out there playing. I didn't know that, but I could pick. But sometimes I couldn't right through there, because we had Joe Newman, we had Cat Ellis, and all of the cats out there playing. And I was thrown in that, just like you throw a rabbit in the briar patch. I was thrown in the briar patch. And I think I really know that listening to what I played, I couldn't do that over again. I was in that environment, and I just thrown in there. I said, well, I got to do this, sink or swim.
Mm-hmm.
So I would never be able to play like that again.
2 last questions on the retooling of your trumpet playing, which was a very bold and successful attempt by you as a senior citizen just about already, that brought on a new dimension of your career, one that is still ongoing, that took place from the late 60s across the early 70s, and then, of course, you're still fixing with it even now here on your 83rd birthday, he being Doc Cheatham. Doc Cheatham, who is on this Monday, June 13th, 1988, 83 years of age, and is spending his birthday with us, for which we saying you're laying the gift on us, the gift of Doc Cheatham, here on Out to Lunch on the Doc Cheatham 83rd birthday broadcast, WKCR-FM New York. Doc Cheatham here with yours truly, Phil Schaap. So these 2 questions I like to ask, and then we'll let him hear Doc Cheatham. Question 1, still on this retooling business, what did you do with the solo tapes? What was your practice regimen? The tapes of, your solos, maybe as many as 40 of them on one side of a cassette, and then what would you do with it once you had it?
Oh, my solos?
Yeah.
I had to stop listening to them on tape. I stopped listening to them. I listened to someone else all the time.
So that was just one aspect, and then you ended it, because you used to have me record your solos on the gig.
Certainly did.
And then you'd have a whole tape of your solos.
Yes.
And you'd say you needed this for the work. So what did you
I wanted to dissect everything I did, and I found so many flaws and so many things that I shouldn't have done. And I do that now. I listen to my solos now. I don't find too many flaws now as I did in the beginning.
What was something you may have discarded that you heard that you used to do that you don't do now?
Oh, little cliches.
Uh-huh.
Those are the things that I have to watch out for. And I listen to other trumpet players in my travels, and I hear a lot of them, especially in Europe. They all have, not all of them, most of them have the same cliches. And that's what I try to avoid. I'm very careful about that.
Anything else?
No.
That was the key.
That's the key, yeah.
Last question on this trumpet thing. You are sometimes acknowledged, you were calling all those trumpet players, most of whom were much younger than you, some of whom were your generation. But some of the charm for the international jazz fan and the hardcore buff here in the States is that you reflect, at times, some pre-Armstrong-isms in your trumpet playing that you incorporate and are the last to incorporate with first-hand knowledge lessons of the Joe Smiths, the Johnny Dunns, the Bix Beiderbecks, if you will. What do those names, besides their historic value, what does their music, what can it do for a young trumpet player? Why should they listen to those three, and what might they learn from them? Pick any one of them.
I wish I could. Well, I don't know. I think the young trumpet players of today try to avoid playing anything that might sound like Louis Armstrong, King Oliver.
That's impossible to not sound like Louis Armstrong. He played jazz trumpet or jazz.
You mean it's impossible to do it?
It's impossible to do it, and it's impossible not to sound like it a little bit because you can't avoid the influence. It's all.
I don't think the young musicians even listen. Not all of them. Some of them do. Now some of them do. I had a wonderful experience traveling on a plane to going somewhere, and I met Wynton Marsalis on this plane. He was sitting on the opposite side, listening all the way to where we were going. I forget where we were going. With earphones on his listening. He was alone, and I was sitting over here, and I was watching him. And I just, when I finished, I went over there. When he finished, I went over and said, What are you listening to? He said, I'm listening to Louis Armstrong. But you don't find too many young trumpet players like that.
Would a young trumpet player be wrong not to expose themselves to the four trumpeters? Let's say, well, Louis, it goes without saying. Let's work on the others. Is there something for the young trumpet player to make an effort to hear Joe Smith's playing? Should they make that effort, or is?
I absolutely think they should.
And what might they hear in Joe Smith's playing that would be an influence or an important source for them?
Joe Smith, I mean, he had so many different styles. He could play sweet. He could play the pleasure better than anyone I've ever heard. And he had the warmth. And I don't think everyone. It's very difficult to imitate something like that. The warmth that comes out of the man's horn.
What about Bix Beiderbecke? Should they listen to him, and what would they get from him?
Well, I think it's a little too late. I think there are too many great trumpet players that has overshadowed Bix at this time. Because you have so many great trumpet players that I haven't even mentioned their names.
You weren't as very much impressed with Bix in the late 20s, were you, at the time? Not as some people were.
I was.
At the time?
Oh, yes. I thought I never heard anything like that in my life. It was the beginning. It was the beginning of the trumpet player, I think, being recognized when Bix came along. Because we always, at that time, before we listened to saxophone and everything else, but not the trumpet. I think Bix started it, the whole thing.
We're talking with Doc Cheatham. He's still starting new things. It's his 83rd birthday today, and we're going to take him back to the records that you at sometimes it told me not to play, but I think you can stand listening to the Jezebel box a little bit, the 73 recordings with Mike Bergman, Jimmy Andrews, and Tom Anthony.
I have just learned since sitting here that my trouble at home is listening to my records. My speakers are terrible. I listen here, I hear altogether different ideas, different feelings than I hear on that little thing I've got sticking up on the wall.
That's the first compliment any equipment has gotten at KCR in 20 years when this stuff was new, but I guess the speakers don't rattle too much. Let's hear some of Doc Cheatham. This is Doc Cheatham birthday broadcast, WKCR-FM, New York. You worked with one of the legendary bands that is not as well remembered as, say, Lunsford and the others, the McKinney's Cotton Pickers Band. Could you reflect on your work with that band, who you remember, what you remember doing?
Yes. I joined that band. The first time I heard Cotton Pickers, I was in Germany, and I was with Sam Wooding, and I heard a radio, a shortwave radio or something, of a McKinney's Cotton Pickers Band playing in Detroit at the Greystone. And Don Redmond was leading that band. And I was so excited that I said to myself, one of these days I'm going to play with that band. I had no idea that would happen. But when I came back to New York from Europe, I immediately, after working with the Marion Hardy's Alabamians, I still got those, bought as many records of Cotton Pickers as I could. And I've never heard a band like that before, because the band was an entertaining as well as a great playing band. And under the direction of Don Redmond, it was out of sight. And that's what I wanted. I wanted real bad to join that band. And I did. Benny Carter was responsible for my joining the Cotton Pickers. And I fell right in there, and I played the music, and I read everything. I had no trouble at all. Joe Smith was there. I think Rex Stewart was in that band, too. I had no trouble playing anything because I was so excited. I had read everything. They were happy with me, and I was happy. I thought it was the greatest thing about. One thing I learned about, that's one reason why I started doing some vocalizing, because we did that with the Cotton Pickers.
Everybody sang.
Everybody sang something. They don't do that too much today. And that's one reason why I says I'm going to do it. And gosh, I've had a lot of flack thrown at me, but I just continue anyway. What the heck? You don't have to have a beautiful voice to do some singing.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't describe Louis Armstrong's voice as beautiful, but you would call him a major singer, wouldn't you?
That's right. You certainly would. No doubt about it.
Who do you remember? Did you know McKinney? He was out of the band. He was a manager by then, wasn't he?
He was a manager of the band. Yes.
But he had been a drummer.
Yes, he was a drummer.
But you wouldn't know anything about his drumming, or?
No, because Cuba was there when I joined the band.
What did Cuba Austin? How would you describe Cuba Austin's drumming?
Cuba was one of the greatest, I think, of that era. One of the greatest drummers alive in that era, because although they told me that Cuba couldn't read or write, but all of the arrangements that he played there was Don. Don Redmond had a lot of bell tones here and there, but Cuba knew everything and knew every note on the bell. Whatever note he had to play, he knew where they were located on the setup, the bell, whatever, the rack.
The orchestral bells.
He knew everything. And he had one of the greatest timer I've ever known. He never varied, never varied. A great timer. And that's all he did. And he was, other than chewing tobacco, he was one of the greatest of that era. A lot of people had a lot of respect for Cuba Austin.
Was the feel of McKinney's Cotton Pickers 2-beat or 4-beat?
It was both. It depended upon whatever Don Redmond would want.
Mm-hmm.
And Benny Carter.
You were in the band when Don Redmond was in charge?
Yes.
So you actually must precede Benny Carter then in the band.
Well, Benny and I went in at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And we went in, and Don Redmond went out.
Mm-hmm.
And Benny started writing practically the same style. He could do that. And the band just continued.
You encouraged Benny Carter at that time, the trumpet, to become a trumpeter.
Yes, I did. I didn't know, because he would always turn around and ask me things about the trumpet. Would it interfere with his embouchure on the saxophone? And he would always ask me that. I said, no, because I played both instruments for a long time. Saxophone, I think it's one helps the other to a certain extent, because you're pushing on the saxophone and you're pulling back on the trumpet. So I think there's a good exercise there going on. And he one day asked me for my horn, and I let him play. He played out. He just played like he'd been. I think he was fooling me, because he played just like sounded just like he'd been playing for all his life. So I gave him a gold tone Korn, C.G. Korn trumpet mouthpiece because he had sort of thick lips. And I said, this is great for your lips. And then he took it and he's still playing it. 50 some odd years, he's still playing the same mouthpiece.
Thank you. I think the reason why you're the man who turned Benny to the trumpet is because you had the one thing that the other trumpet players didn't have, a background as a saxophonist.
Yeah.
And when he saw that it hadn't changed you, then he had enough nerve to do it.
That's right, yeah.
You go for that.
Oh, sure I do. Absolutely, yeah.
We're talking with Doc Cheatham. He's 83 years of age today. My name is Phil Schaap. This is the Doc Cheatham 83rd birthday broadcast, and it's pardon me for noting this on the air, but I mean, I'm just having a casual conversation with Doc Cheatham, as I've done now for 20 years. And I said, wait a second, this guy's 83 and he knows more than anybody and plays a whole lot, and he's just wonderful. He looks great, and don't forget to check him out 4 times a year at Sweet Basil. You know, I think not Carl Robinson. He's Perry Robinson's father. He's a noted folk singer. I don't know why I can't go. But he has a song called 4 Hugs a Day. In any case, so 4 times a year, go hear Doc Cheatham, who is actually, I believe, a bit older than even Mr. Robinson, Perry's father. Phil Schaap here with you. And again, this is Doc Cheatham's 83rd birthday. Doc, we're going to stun him now.
Okay.
Absolutely flabbergast him because this is the home stretch.
All right.
You're Ornette Coleman's uncle.
Yes, cousin.
Cousin or uncle? You were his uncle once.
Yeah, well, you know.
Your wife in the 40s and Ornette's mother were sisters.
Yes.
So you were his uncle.
No, wait a minute. No, wait a minute.
Tell me
Yes, that's right. That's right.
You had a young teenage Ornette Coleman staying with you during summer back in the 40s.
Oh, yes. I remember that very well.
Well, remember it for us.
Well, his Truvenza was my wife's cousin, and they brought Ornette up to my apartment, and we had a great big old nice apartment, and Ornette, they put him in the bathtub, how to do kids, threw him in the bathtub, and I never forget and all that, how women around there. And he somehow or another had his mind on playing something. I couldn't guarantee that, but he must have. And they took him down to Walter Thomas' studio, and they got him a saxophone. And from then on, he just started playing. And, what he's doing, a lot of people don't understand, but then so many people do understand. Those who don't understand are afraid to say so, because he's so great. But he decided once he wanted to play trumpet. So I went down to his house and I cut my horn and gave him his mouthpiece. Also gave him a special made mouthpiece for him to play. And he said on there, Doc, one thing, I'm going to make a recording. I said, no, you're not either. What's me? I said, no, you're not either. I said, what the heck am I going to do? He said, oh, don't worry about this. He said, play something. So I took my horn up and I played a melody. He said, no. I said, I played another melody. Ooh, there's something beautiful. No. I got kind of disgusted. I said, what the heck? I took my horn up and I started rapidly throwing my fingers on the valve. He said, that's it. Well, I think he's kidding. Every time I run into him, he said, we're going to make that recording. He said, don't worry, I'm going to write something for you. But I think he's kidding.
So you gave Benny Carter and Ornette Coleman their mouthpieces?
Yes, I did.
Let me get this straight. Ornette Coleman's mother was your wife at the time's sister?
Cousin.
They were cousins. So you were his cousin and not his uncle.
Right, cousin.
I thought they were sisters.
No, they were cousins.
You're sure of that?
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure.
Okay, so now I got it straight.
Mm-hmm.
And you told me once, many, many years ago, that you introduced the young Ornette Coleman on that visit to Teddy Wilson.
Yes.
Any recollections about that?
Not at all.
Just that it happened?
Just it happened, and I don't remember it all.
That's something. And would you date this as what, 45, 40?
It's back in the 40s. Yes, somewhere along the 40s. Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. Well, we have got a little selection here. We haven't talked about the band. You know, you got your own band.
Oh, yes.
Sweet Basil, Sundays, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Unfortunately, you don't have Al Hall anymore. The new bass player is Bucky, isn't it?
Bucky Calabrese.
Yeah. And you got Bucky Calabrese on bass. You've got Jackie Williams still on drums. Mr. Chuck Folds, who just turned, he's a young guy, 50.
Yes.
And he's 33 years younger than you, actually 32 and a heavy piece of change. And you're there on trumpet and vocals. And we're going to listen to the ensemble. This is the album, It's a Good Life, which is an appropriate thing to play for a man who is 83 years young today, Doc Cheatham, with his New York Quartet, the album on Parkwood 101. This was recorded on December 6th and 7th of 1982, but then not issued until, I guess it was maybe as much as a year later. And one of the things you do on this is strutting with some barbecue, which you waiter another rib or two.
Yeah.
You even sing the lyrics. You say you did it as a ballad for the Jezebel label as one of the
Yes,
unissued
yeah,
sides.
That's right.
I think I like on your 84th birthday, I'm going to call Mike Bergman and see if we can play that one against this
I
one.
hope you do that. I certainly hope you do that. I'm strutting with some barbecue, feeling grand, like all the happy people do in Dixieland. Now just listen to this band. I love to hear them play while I'm picking on a juicy rib. I'm strutting, yes, feeling grand. Please pass another helping of that Dixieland. And Mr. Waiter, please, another rib or two, then we'll go strutting with the barbecue. Listen to that bass there. He's strutting with some barbecue.
Doc Cheatham with the working band, the New York Quartet. Doc Cheatham's foursome that's been at Sweet Basil every Sunday this decade. And their incredible album, Doc Cheatham, It's a Good Life, on Parkwood Records. We heard the tune Struttin' with Some Barbecue with Doc Cheatham on trumpet, Chuck Folds on piano, the late Al Hall on bass, Bucky Calabrese is now the bassist, Jackie Williams on drums. Phil Schaap here with Doc Cheatham on his 83rd birthday. You know, Doc, you're an inspiration to us young people. We're amazed at what you've done in your entire lifetime, what you've done when most people's lifetimes are coming to an end. And to just signify that specifically, I mean, who but Doc Cheatham could come up with not one but two new ideas on Struttin' with Some Barbecue, maybe a multitude of new ideas on a tune that many bands disdain because it's been played to death. You sing it with lyrics that stun us of their existence. You use it to introduce and bring on your band, let them strut their stuff. And now I find out you've even done it as a ballad. You're the amazing Doc Cheatham, who gets younger or better.
Ooh, that's great.
83 today, though. And this has been a wonderful way for me to spend my June 13th. And I hope to have a little time with you, when you become the U.B. Blake of jazz, 17 years from today. The great Doc Cheatham. Well, anything you want to add?
Well, like you said, if I knew I was going to get this old, I would have taken better care of myself.
Well, actually, you seem to have done all right with yourself.
That's a nice thing you did.
Yes, indeed. And Andy Kirk lifted that line on his 90th birthday, and you were one of the people on the stage. They,
Great mind.
they brought you to that gig because they wanted to have you at a gig where you weren't the senior member of the ensemble.
Right. I feel very good about that.
Well, there's only one last song for us to play for you here on this 13th of June, and I brought in the KCR chorus. They've been rehearsing for 3 months for this event, and which key would you like it in? And
Well, it doesn't matter about the keys as long as it's there.
Well, I think Buddy Ratliff is the only bona fide musician among the lot of us.
My voice is lower than most.
Okay, all right. Well, 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Doc Cheatham. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, little ladies. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. That's so nice.